The rain had soaked the cracked asphalt of the city alley, making puddles shimmer under the flickering neon signs. Lily, barely 8 years old, hugged herself against the cold, her small frame trembling as she pressed against the brick wall of a rundown apartment building. She had been trying to stay invisible for weeks, but tonight, she knew it wouldn't work. Her whisper barely carried over the drizzle, "He's going to hurt me." From across the street, the sound of roaring motorcycles cut through the rain like thunder. Leather jackets glistened wet under the neon glow, chrome gleaming as 50 bikers came to a sudden, deliberate stop, engines buzzing low and ominous. Each rider's eyes scanned the street with trained intensity. At the front, a tall biker named Kane pushed back his hood and stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding, "We heard. We're here." Lily's breath hitched. She had been ignored for too long. Neighbors, landlords, even the city's authorities had looked away. But these strangers, these towering riders, seemed different. Their presence radiated a strange mix of menace and protection, like living shields against the storm of her fear. One of the bikers, a woman with silver-streaked hair named Raven, knelt beside Lily. "You're safe now," she said gently, brushing wet hair from the girl's face. "We're not going anywhere." The alley seemed to grow smaller, every shadow suddenly more pronounced. Steps echoed behind a metal gate, the man she had been trying to hide from. The bikers stiffened instantly, forming a protective barrier around Lily. Leather and muscle lined the street like an unmovable wall. Kane's voice was low but filled with authority. "You move, he doesn't. That's the deal. Stay calm." The man approached, unaware of the storm of 50 strong that had just appeared between him and the girl. The biker's presence alone communicated a silent warning. No one harms the innocent on their watch. Lily clutched her small stuffed bear, trembling but beginning to feel something unfamiliar, relief. Someone was finally listening. Someone was finally acting. The man froze as he took in the scene, rows of leather, the glint of chrome, and 100 eyes trained on him with unwavering focus. His smirk faltered, replaced with hesitation. He realized, too late, that fear had shifted, and the tables had turned. Raven leaned closer to Lily, whispering, "Breathe. You're not alone anymore. And no one's going to touch you." The rain continued to fall, turning the city streets into a mirror of tension and anticipation. Every heartbeat seemed magnified. Lily's whisper had summoned more than protection. It had summoned justice, loyalty, and courage in motion. But as Kane scanned the alley, he knew this was only the beginning. The threat hadn't disappeared, it had simply been confronted. And the next moves would determine whether Lily's newfound safety would hold. The alley seemed to hold its breath under the drizzle, shadows stretching and twisting in the neon glow. Kane signaled subtly, and the 50 bikers fanned out with a practiced efficiency, creating a ring of protection around Lily. Leather jackets brushed together, boots planted firmly, eyes scanning every doorway, window, and corner for potential danger. Raven crouched beside Lily, speaking softly. "Tell me everything you know. Every detail. It helps us protect you better." Lily's voice trembled. He's been following me home from school. I've tried to hide, tried to tell someone, but no one listens. And tonight, I thought he'd hurt me." Kane placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing. That's all that matters. Right now, our job is to make sure he doesn't." From across the alley, faint footsteps echoed. One of the bikers, a younger rider named Axel, moved silently toward the sound, signaling for backup. The man, unaware that his every move was being tracked, slowed slightly. His confidence faltered as he took in the unwavering circle of protectors, each biker radiating both strength and moral resolve. Inside the protective perimeter, Lily clutched her bear tightly. She could see her rescuer's determination reflected in the eyes of every rider. The leather-clad figures weren't just imposing, they were vigilant, loyal, and willing to act without hesitation. Each biker embodied the same lesson Kane had taught countless times: courage isn't just for fights. It's for standing up when someone can't. Kane motioned to Axel, who returned with subtle hand signals. "His alone. No weapons visible. But watch for movement. He may try to bluff his way past." Raven leaned closer to Lily again. "Stay calm. You're surrounded. We're stronger together. And that strength protects you. The man hesitated, pacing slightly, uncertainty creeping into his posture. Every instinct told him to flee, but pride held him rooted. Then, one of the bikers stepped forward, Jace, a broad man with a shaved head and a weathered face. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The message was clear: step closer, and consequences will follow. Lily, watching this silent standoff, felt a strange sense of empowerment. She realized something essential. Protection wasn't just about muscle. It was about loyalty, courage, and unwavering moral action. And right now, she had it all surrounding her. Minutes stretched, tension thick in the damp air. The man finally muttered something under his breath and took a slow, deliberate step backward. Kane's gaze didn't leave him. "Good choice," he said quietly, not threatening, but acknowledging that moral authority had won this round. Raven smiled at Lily. "See, courage doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it's about knowing the right people are standing with you." As the bikers slowly relaxed their stances, the alley felt different, safer, charged with the invisible shield of loyalty and protection. The storm outside mirrored the storm that had just passed inside Lily's life. Fear, uncertainty, and danger had been met with unwavering moral strength. Kane finally crouched beside Lily. "You're safe now. And remember, asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. You did the right thing, and now the city knows. Nobody touches the innocent while we're watching." The neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, painting the bikers' silhouettes in heroic, almost cinematic strokes. The little girl's whisper had summoned a force of loyalty and protection, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of relief and hope. But Kane knew the night wasn't over. Danger often waits, testing resolve, measuring courage. Their protection was strong, but vigilance would have to continue if they wanted to ensure Lily's safety until the threat was gone for good. Night had settled over the city, mist curling around streetlights, turning every shadow into a potential threat. Kane and his bikers kept a vigilant formation around Lily and her small apartment building. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles that reflected the neon glow from nearby signs. Every ripple in the water mirrored the tension in the alley: alertness, anticipation, and a readiness to act. Raven kept a steady hand on Lily's shoulder. "You've been brave. But now we need to understand exactly what we're up against." Lily whispered shakily, He wants me. He says my mom owes him. I don't know why he thinks." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Debt. Threats. We'll figure it out. Nobody threatens a child on my watch." Jace and Axel moved silently through the streets, scouting. They discovered a few scattered clues, discarded bottles, a backpack with threatening notes, and the faint scent of cigarettes. Each detail added to the picture. The man wasn't acting randomly. He was methodical, seeking intimidation, testing fear. Kane turned back to Lily. "See those shadows over there?" He nodded toward a dimly lit alley across the street. "That's the trail. That's where he's been lurking. We need to follow it, carefully, so we know who else might be involved." The bikers moved with quiet efficiency, forming a protective cordon as they traced the man's movements. Lily stayed close to Raven, holding her hand tightly. Fear was still there, but it had been replaced with a strange mix of trust and cautious hope. These bikers weren't just powerful, they were reliable, their loyalty visible in every measured movement. They reached a side street where the man had been spotted earlier. He emerged from the shadows, attempting to act casual, but the biker's presence made him falter. Kane stepped forward, voice calm but heavy with authority. "Enough games. Step back, or this stops on your terms, and I promise, you won't like the consequences." The man froze, realizing he was outnumbered and outmatched, not just physically, but morally. These bikers weren't acting out of anger or vengeance, they were enforcing justice. Protection had a new face tonight, and he wasn't prepared for it. Jace, standing a few feet behind Kane, held out a small evidence bag, items they had recovered from previous encounters. "We know what you've been doing. Threats, intimidation, leave this child alone. And anyone else who thinks fear is a tool, they'll learn it doesn't work here." The man's bravado crumbled. Sweat ran down his forehead as he glanced around, realizing his plans were unraveling. Kane didn't raise a fist, he didn't need to. Moral authority, loyalty, and unwavering courage were enough to make the man step back, trembling. Lily's whisper from earlier echoed in Kane's mind, "He's going to hurt me." Now, that fear was being met with something stronger, unwavering protection, visible in 50 pairs of watchful eyes and the rumble of Harleys ready to act. Raven knelt beside Lily, speaking softly. "You see? Courage comes in many forms. You asked for help, and now justice is here. That's how it works. People stand with you, and fear loses its power." As the man finally retreated into the darkness, the bikers remained vigilant. Kane's eyes scanned the surrounding streets, ensuring no other threats lingered. The lesson had been made clear. Attempts to intimidate the innocent would meet loyalty and moral strength that would not waver. The mother, who had arrived quietly with neighbors in tow, finally stepped forward. Tears streaked her cheeks as she embraced Lily. I don't know how to thank all of you. You saved her." Kane crouched beside them, voice firm yet gentle. "No thanks needed. You asked for help. That's bravery. Courage is showing up, even when you're scared. And now, the city has seen that protecting the innocent is worth everything." The neon lights reflected off wet pavement, painting the bikers as guardians rather than threats. The night had tested them all, but loyalty, courage, and moral justice had won. Lily's whispered plea had not only summoned protection, it had reshaped the street itself, teaching the neighborhood that fear no longer had dominion here. The streets were quieter now, but the tension in the air remained, like the calm before a storm that had already passed. Kane and his riders had formed a protective perimeter around Lily's apartment, their engines idling softly, chrome and leather glinting under the flickering streetlights. Each biker radiated a quiet authority, a promise that no harm would come while they were present. Raven crouched beside Lily, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. "We're not leaving yet," she said gently. "Not until we know it's truly safe." Lily nodded, clutching her stuffed bear. The comfort of their presence was undeniable, yet she still trembled slightly. "Will he come back?" she whispered. Kane placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll make sure he doesn't get the chance. Courage is about standing up, even when fear is real. And tonight, you've learned something important. You're never truly alone when people are willing to act." Jace and Axel moved through the surrounding streets, eyes scanning for any sign of the man or his associates. Their movements were precise, silent, a choreography of vigilance that only experienced riders could execute. The rain-slicked asphalt reflected the neon signs in fractured patterns, turning the city into a cinematic battlefield where moral authority had taken form. Back at the apartment, the mother approached, her eyes wide with both relief and gratitude. I don't know what to say. You've saved her, saved us." Raven smiled warmly. "You don't need to say anything. You asked for help. That's courage too. And now, you have people who will always stand with you when things get dangerous." Kane observed quietly, watching the mother and daughter bond over their shared relief. "Safety isn't just about keeping someone from harm," he said softly. "It's about trust. And that trust has to be built, one action at a time. Tonight, we've taken the first step." Neighbors, drawn by the rumble of motorcycles and the commotion, peeked from windows and doorways. Their curiosity was tempered by awe. The bikers weren't threatening, they were guardians. Some offered small gestures, water, blankets, kind words, learning that courage and protection inspire kindness in return. The mother knelt beside Lily, embracing her tightly. "You were so brave," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." Lily's small arms wrapped around her mother. "I wasn't alone," she said quietly. They protected me." Kane stepped closer, addressing the mother. "You're not alone, either. Being brave doesn't mean handling everything by yourself. Courage is asking for help and trusting people to do the right thing. That's what we've done tonight. And we'll continue, if needed." The bikers began to relax, some leaning against their Harleys, others keeping watch silently. The night no longer felt threatening. Instead, it carried a strange warmth, a sense that the world could still bend toward justice and moral courage. The little girl's whispered fear had been transformed into visible protection, and that transformation had touched everyone nearby. By late night, the city block had shifted. Lily and her mother were no longer victims. They were part of a broader network of vigilance, loyalty, and courage. Every biker present had become a living emblem of moral action, demonstrating that true power lies not in domination, but in protection, empathy, and steadfast resolve. Raven squeezed Lily's hand gently. See, courage isn't just about fighting. It's about standing with those who can't defend themselves. And tonight, we've all learned that lesson together. The mother's eyes shimmered with tears. I think I understand now. You've given us more than safety, you've given us hope. Kane nodded, eyes scanning the surrounding streets one last time. Exactly. And hope is the strongest shield anyone can have. The city, for one small block, had changed that night. Fear had been met with loyalty, helplessness had been met with courage, and a little girl's whispered plea had summoned the moral strength of 50 hearts beating as one. By the early hours, the city block began to feel different, as though the events of the night had left an invisible imprint. The rain had ceased, leaving a reflective sheen across the asphalt, and the neon lights glimmered in the puddles like scattered jewels. Kane and his riders maintained a loose protective circle around Lily and her mother, but they could sense a subtle shift in the neighborhood, a ripple of awareness, respect, and cautious hope. From a nearby window, an elderly woman leaned out, watching quietly. She had seen the bikers surround the girl, observed the way they had moved as a unit, and now, without realizing it, she felt a sense of security she hadn't known in years. Across the street, a young man peeked from his doorway, realizing that real courage wasn't just in movies or stories. It had manifested tonight, in living form. Raven stayed close to Lily, noticing the way the girl's small hands had relaxed around her stuffed bear. You see, Raven said softly. You asked for help, and look at all the ways it's spreading. Courage isn't just about what you do, it inspires others to act too. Lily glanced up, eyes wide, understanding just enough. So, people are noticing. They are, Kane replied. And some of them will do the right thing because they saw you speak up and because they saw people stand with you. That's how change starts. Big Tom approached the mother, offering a small cup of warm tea he had bought from a late-night diner nearby. You've done your part by asking for help. Now the rest of us can make sure you're safe while you regain strength. The mother held the cup, hands trembling slightly, not from cold, but from a mix of relief, gratitude, and disbelief. I never thought people like you would exist. I thought we were alone. Axel leaned against his Harley, quietly observing. People exist. And some of us just choose to act. Tonight was about showing that fear doesn't have to control life, and that loyalty, courage, and protection aren't just words, they're actions. Across the street, a few neighbors began leaving their apartments, offering blankets, food, and small gestures of kindness. One man quietly mopped the sidewalk, a subtle act of care in the aftermath of tension. Another woman handed Lily a small flashlight she had found in her kitchen, a token of solidarity. The ripple of moral courage spread further than the bikers could have predicted. The mother knelt beside Lily, holding her close. I understand now. Courage, it isn't just fighting, is it? No, Raven said gently. It's standing with the right people. Asking for help. Trusting those who have the moral strength to protect you. And doing the right thing, even when it's scary. The night air carried a quiet hum, the distant sound of the city, punctuated by the faint revving of the bikers' engines, a steady reminder that the vigil over the family would continue until the threat was gone. The block was no longer just a stretch of asphalt and brick, it had become a microcosm of loyalty, protection, and moral action. Kane watched Lily hug her mother tightly. Tonight, the city learned a lesson, he said quietly to himself. Sometimes, courage arrives on two wheels, and sometimes, it's enough to change lives one family, one block, one heart at a time. The little girl's whispered fear had triggered something extraordinary, a demonstration of moral strength, courage, and unshakable loyalty. And now, in the quiet aftermath, those ripples of courage began to reach far beyond her small apartment, inspiring everyone who had witnessed it, teaching them that standing for the innocent wasn't just necessary, it was inevitable. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to pierce the horizon, casting the city in pale gold and pink, turning wet streets into mirrors that reflected the bikers' silhouettes like silent guardians. Kane, Raven, Jace, and the rest of the chapter had maintained their vigil all night. Fatigue tugged at their limbs, but no one wavered. Protection wasn't something that ended with darkness. Lily sat on the stoop of her building, tired eyes wide with both fear and curiosity. Her small hands clutched her bear tightly, yet her posture had shifted subtly, less curled, more assured. She had survived the night with the bikers standing between her and harm, but Kane knew the true test had yet to come. The man had not yet been fully deterred. From a nearby alley, movement flickered. The man reappeared, emboldened by desperation, thinking that the night's lessons had been temporary. But the bikers were ready. 50 leather-clad figures emerged almost seamlessly from the shadows, surrounding him in a disciplined, impenetrable ring. Chrome glinted in the early light, engines revving softly, a low, steady hum of authority. Kane stepped forward, voice calm but commanding. "This ends here. You've been warned. Step away. No games. No excuses. You do this again, and it won't be words this time, it will be consequences you can't ignore." The man's bravado crumbled. Sweat ran down his forehead as he realized he was not facing intimidation alone. He was facing moral authority, loyalty, courage, and an entire chapter dedicated to justice for the innocent. The lesson he had failed to learn the night before became crystal clear. Raven knelt beside Lily, whispering gently, "Watch. This is how courage and loyalty work together. You asked for help, and they showed up. That's what protecting someone looks like." The man muttered under his breath, glancing nervously at every direction. The bikers held their positions without a single aggressive move, yet the message was undeniable: no harm would be tolerated. Finally, the man turned, retreating into the shadows, understanding fully that Lily was untouchable under the watch of those who had chosen to act with moral strength. The mother ran to Lily, embracing her tightly. "You're safe," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "Forever safe now." Kane crouched beside them. "Courage isn't just about confronting fear yourself," he said softly. "It's also about knowing when to trust those who stand with you. Tonight, you've learned both lessons, and we'll make sure you never have to face that fear alone again." The bikers maintained a quiet, vigilant presence as the first real light of day spread across the streets. Neighbors peeked from windows, some whispering words of gratitude, others silently nodding in acknowledgement. The city had witnessed the power of moral courage in action, loyalty, protection, and justice moving as a unit, not with violence for vengeance, but with principle and unwavering resolve. Lily hugged her bear and glanced up at Kane. "Will they really stay with us?" Kane smiled faintly, voice warm. "We don't need to stay forever. But as long as there's a threat, someone will be here. And the lesson will last longer than tonight. You now know that courage, loyalty, and protection are stronger than fear." The city block, once shadowed with threat, now glimmered with hope. The bikers mounted their Harleys, engines rumbling softly, leaving behind more than safety. They left a story, a living proof that when moral courage rides forward, even the smallest plea for help can summon the greatest guardians. The morning sun bathed the city in soft golden light, reflecting off puddles and wet asphalt, casting long, warm shadows. Lily and her mother sat together on the stoop, holding each other tightly, still shaken but slowly breathing in the calm that had replaced the terror of the night. The city block felt different, safer, somehow charged with a new sense of justice and protection. Kane and his riders stood nearby, some leaning against their Harleys, others quietly observing. The 50 bikers had done more than prevent harm. They had taught the neighborhood, the mother, and most importantly Lily, the weight and power of moral courage, loyalty, and protection. No words could capture the full impact. It was a presence felt in every glance, every stance, every ripple of vigilance. The mother's voice trembled as she whispered, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my daughter." Kane crouched to her level, eyes gentle yet firm. "You don't need to thank us. You and your daughter did something just as important, asked for help. Courage isn't only about facing danger. It's about trusting when it matters most. You did that. That's bravery, too." Lily hugged her mother tightly, looking up at the bikers with a mixture of awe and gratitude. "We're safe. Forever, Kane said softly. And more than safe, you now know that courage, loyalty, and protection are real things, and they're worth standing for. People will always rise to protect those who can't protect themselves. The bikers mounted their Harleys, engines thrumming a steady, reassuring rhythm, and began to move away, leaving the family surrounded not by fear, but by the invisible strength of community and moral action. The city block remained transformed, the lesson had been delivered, innocence deserves protection, and courage paired with action can change lives. As the family watched the riders disappear into the city, a quiet smile spread across the mother's face. She knew they had not only saved her daughter, they had shown the city that fear could be overcome, that bravery could inspire, and that loyalty could stand firm even against the darkest threats. Courage isn't always loud, it often whispers through action and presence. Protection is not just physical, it is loyalty, vigilance, and moral strength. Even a small plea for help can summon extraordinary guardians. Communities grow stronger when people act with courage and empathy. Standing up for the innocent is a responsibility and a privilege. True heroes show that bravery, compassion, and honor can reshape lives, one act at a time.